Hey everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Dimi Vezos and I apologize this time to my German community for speaking English, but I'm about to have an interview with two very important persons from Wilson Audio, a very high-end loudspeaker manufacturer from Utah, worldwide known for its innovative designs and exceptional sound quality. I'll meet Peter McGrath and Trent Workman from Wilson Audio. I think I don't have a lot of time with them, so I will ask them each 3 questions and then let's see what's going to happen. Have fun with the video. Trent, thank you for your time. I have some questions to you. Can you tell me what is your role at Wilson Audio?
So my role at Wilson Audio is primarily Director of Sales, but I also do customer service. So if someone calls into Wilson Audio or someone emails Wilson Audio, those emails and calls generally will come to myself or part of our other sales team to answer. I've been at Wilson Audio for 31 years, so I've got some experience with our previous products that we built many years ago. And so when those questions come in, I have the experience to troubleshoot them or help them service the products or even help them learn how to set them up or to get better sound out of their systems. So when they call in, I have that experience. I originally got into Wilson Audio, came to Wilson Audio because I was interested in car audio. As a younger guy, many years ago, I was building my own car audio. Separate speakers in the doors and building my own subwoofers, and that really began kind of my musical journey. And I had an uncle that had a recording studio in Salt Lake City that I would visit occasionally. And he kind of introduced me to this world of home audio or something other than car audio. And through him, I was introduced to a company store near my house where I first saw Wilson Audio and heard Wilson Audio. And it was at that time the Watt Puppy 3.2 with a WOW subwoofer. And when I heard that for the first time, it changed my life. And I found out that they were manufactured just really right in my hometown in Provo, Utah. And so I found the address and went to them and said, hey, I want to work at Wilson Audio. This is my passion. This is something I love to do. And I was really willing to do anything. I was willing to sweep the floor just to get my foot in that door and start my journey, which I did. It took me about a year to get there. The company was much smaller. They had just recently moved to Provo. But I was able to get in and start actually in the manufacturing part of the company where I was building the speakers and in testing the speakers as part of the manufacturing process. And through that I gained experience with the products and with other products, amplifiers in the high-end world, and worked into customer service and through that into sales as I started to meet and work with the dealer network that we worked with throughout the world. So that was really how I got started.
Thank you for this personal side of you.
Yeah.
How did it change the way you listen to music? Like before you started working for Wilson Audio and then after years?
I've always been a music lover. My mother played music in our home as a small child, and so I always loved listening to music. I would say most of the music I listened to then was from the radio or from LPs that my mother had purchased. But when I started working at Wilson Audio, I worked with Peter and Dave Wilson and was introduced to a whole world of other music that's out there that I didn't even know existed. And more importantly, I learned that there's a difference in the quality of recordings, that that not everything sounded the same. Or there were some recordings that sounded better than others, and those differences became important to me. And I sought out, music that that just sounded better, that was recorded better, that I liked. And yeah, it changed my life to be able to be introduced to this new type of music and different types of music that I'd never really heard before. So
cool.
Yeah, it's good.
One last question. Trent, your role is in customer service, is all about creating exceptional experiences. What has been the most memorable interaction with a customer that showcased the impact of Wilson audio speakers on their lives?
Well, working with people is probably the thing that I enjoy most about my job, and is what has kept me at Wilson Audio for so many years. I deal with customers every day, and I also deal every day with our distribution. And I work with mostly our international distributors in Asia, in South America, and also in Europe. And my interactions with them is what is the most important, really. And being able to help them help their customers bring these products into their home and this music into their home and bless the lives of themselves and their families is what makes me happy, and it's what I love to do. So I have the opportunity to talk to many customers on the phone every day, or receive emails and converse with them, and either help them troubleshoot their systems or help them make the system sound better. And that just is something I love to do, and brings me a lot of joy, and keeps me doing what I do here. So that's what I love.
Thank you very much for this interview. See you later for listening to some music?
Yes, that sounds good.
Okay.
Thanks.
Hey, Peter, thank you for taking some time for me.
My pleasure.
Can you tell me your role in Wilson Audio?
Well, it's kind of changed and evolved over the 25 years that I've been involved with the company. Actually, I've been involved with the company closer to 50 years, in the sense that I was a retailer and I sold Wilson Audio for many, many years before I joined the company. I sold my first Wilson speakers in the early 80s, and I had a retail store that had already been in business 10 years before that. So I've been doing this a fairly long time, and then that store that I owned went through a transition, and for a couple of years I bounced around in the industry, and then I get a call from David Wilson saying, "Old friend, it's time to come home," in a way. And he invited me up, and we had some discussions, and next thing I know, I'm working for David Wilson, who was actually an old friend that I had met in 1971, before Wilson Audio even existed. And so I've had a long, long relationship with him, and the aesthetic and the quality of what the company does, both as someone who sold the product directly to the end user, and as someone who worked with the company that then sold it to distributors and dealers, etc. So I have a long, long history with it, and remains a great, great pleasure.
For me, Peter, you're somehow kind of like the face for Wilson Audio, because I always see you on demonstrations at different hi-fi shows. And my next question is, yeah, somehow you're a brand ambassador for Wilson Audio.
I have. That's kind of what my role is now, in the later years, and I'm happy to be that. Obviously, I guess in many ways I'm the link to, and therefore an ambassador to the ombudsman of, with what David Wilson himself was, and what Darrell Wilson is now. And I think in many ways, to the outside world, I'm perceived as the person that helps bridge that ambassadorial responsibility. Darrell is nothing short of a miracle in terms of what he has accomplished in his time in running the company. And indeed, I have a pretty good perspective on that because as I saw the whole development and evolution of his father in the development of the company and how, and then can see from a clear perspective, both kind of inside and outside, what Darrell has continued to bring to the company. And what he has achieved actually is very, very unique, because any person who studies generational transition of companies will realize how rare it is that a company goes from one generation and then goes on to the next generation and is successful with the values and in many ways even improve on the values of what its predecessor, the founder had. Mm-hmm. That's unique and extremely rare, and that has happened, I would almost use the word miraculously, at Wilson Audio with Darrell. And also, I think every member of our team, all of which were there before his father passed, and all of which, and with some new additions that we brought in, continue on now as we go forward into the future. And I'm, elderly now, and it's only a question of time how much longer I will be doing it. But I can say this with tremendous pride, and that is that I am proud that I will end my career doing what fulfillment of my love and passion for music reproduction, the art of music reproduction, at a company with this distinction. And thank God it didn't end when its founder was no longer with us. In many ways, it's just beginning. And for that, I'm glad to be an ambassador. Does that make any sense? I hope it does. Yeah.
It makes, and it's what you transport. We can feel the passion you really transport to us. And as you're doing both, being in recording engineer and a brand ambassador for Wilson Audio, how has your experience in the studio influenced your approach to demonstrating high-end speakers like those from Wilson Audio?
That's interesting, and the parallels, I think, are remarkable in the sense that, I don't spend time recording in a studio per se. Where I actually do all of my recording is either in a church venue, in a concert hall venue, usually in live circumstances where live acoustical music is actually performed on a regular basis. And one of the critical things in those spaces is learning the process where you put the microphone. And there the parallel is really remarkable in terms of where you put the loudspeaker in the store showroom or in the customer's home. And what you learn from doing this, and I've done both now for half a century, and what you learn is that the smallest movement, a half-inch movement of the loudspeaker, even a quarter of an inch, how that loudspeaker interacts with the room and that movement affects the sound. Well, the other side of the equation is the same thing. Where you put the microphone, where the mic is overreacting to room modes, how it's reacting to the total balance of the piano or the combination of the piano, the cello, and the violin, and how to get just that right position where you get the best reproduction that the microphone can actually capture. So those parallels exist, and I think, I got that from David Wilson. It was one of the reasons that we loved each other so much is that he too started as a recording engineer, and before he even started Wilson Audio, and that's how we met originally. I was a graduate student, and I was working in a hi-fi shop, and we met, and he wound up buying a preamplifier from me, which he then modified and turned it into a microphone preamp. And I thought that was beyond brilliant. When I met him and I saw this man doing that, I thought to myself, that's someone I got to know, because I was just finishing up my degree in photography, which is what I studied, but then opened up a hi-fi shop in Florida. He went to California. But those parallels remained, and that kind of spiritual connection. And the other thing that was really important to me was that David Wilson was curious, open, to what music really could be and is. His wife, Cheryl Lee, was a singer and a beautiful singer, but he was really curious about music, and as was I. And I don't think either of us have actually ever formally studied music per se, but we've always had this sort of parallel connection with it, realizing it did things to us that we couldn't quite explain. And then we were fascinated about trying to how to render it in a reproducible way. And then finally he established himself as a recording engineer, had a label, made records, and then the speakers he was showing at hi-fi shows where the people fell in love with the loudspeakers that which he had created for the purpose of demonstrating his recordings. Then slowly, as time evolved, as David said, you know, the ultimate thing you want to do if you want to be truly great is focus. And so recordings sort of diminished, but then he became fully involved in the design and development of loudspeakers and the development of his company to feed his family and to feed the employees that he hired, which he did very, very successfully. Not without a lot of struggle, but he succeeded. I went off and opened up a hi-fi shop in Florida, where I live still. And while working there, I also met a wonderful gentleman by the name of Mark Levinson, who I became one of his first dealers. And he took me under his wing and taught me how to make recordings. Something that I'd been experimenting with, but it was Mark who brought me to a level, at a fairly high level of doing it, and built some custom equipment with which I started. And eventually I started recording for a company called Harmonia Mundi. I was their chief engineer in the United States for a number of years. And then I got involved with local organizations, the opera, the major orchestra in Florida where I lived, chamber music, and frankly, people would describe me as obsessed with recording, and I was, and am still, to the extent that I have the time and can, and it's a major part of my life is recordings and making photographs. Those are the two, raising children and working for Wilson Audio. So that's what I do.
But I think that's exactly what the industry needs, people like you who being so precise in this job. And let me ask you one thing also, because you talked about your connections you made with David and from Mark Levinson. And we all have something that connect us together, like music.
Yes.
And it connects us emotionally. Can you share a moment when you felt truly moved by a particular track during a speaker demo? And how did the audience respond to that experience?
That's a good question. And I would say that there are a couple of, a number of really, truly great incidences. And I think I'm unique in the sense that I can play a recording that I have made, that I've had the pleasure of producing, and then I play it at a hi-fi so-called show or a demonstration. And I can relate details that were involved in the making of that recording, what the artist was going through, what they weren't going through, or whatever. And I remember vividly, I had recorded, I won't name the group, but it was a very famous piano, violin, cello, piano trio. And they performed one of the late Schubert piano trios. And I vividly remember that the violinist and the cellist, who were married, and the pianist was a separate, you know, not part of that marriage, but anyway, they went on stage. But just before they went out, and I'm set up with my gear, they were arguing. The tension between them was visceral. I mean, they were obviously having some kind of a marital you know, stressed, as we all, any of us who've been married, we know what that's, and I could see it. I could see it in the tone of her voice and the language, the body language of the violinist, and, you know, how, but then they went out and they performed. And I'm listening to the headphone and I'm thinking, this is incredible. And they came back in and they crossed back into the back. And they just embraced with tears coming down. Oh, that was it. And I was just thinking, that's what music can do.
Wow.
It can do it. You know, and I related that story to people as they listened to it, and people in the room started crying. And I saw husbands and wives, you know, just sort of realizing that there's something much more powerful than the moment that we're struggling with. There's so many aspects of what music can do. And that made it really clear that what a blessing and what a joy it is to be involved in that. And I mean, the makers of the music, and just recounting the experience of it, and then they're hearing the performance, it really, so in a way, it's the whole gamut and how important that can really be. So I don't know if any of that makes sense, but...
thank you for sharing this moment.
It was very
I truly understand what you say,
yeah,
because I had similar situations, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
Peter, I soon will ask you also about the speakers we see in the background.
Yeah.
But I think people also on my channel want to know, but I have one last question before we get over to that.
Yeah.
With Trent, I talked about customer relationship, because that's his role. But I did not ask one question. Maybe you can answer this question. So customer feedback is key to maintaining quality. Can you share an instance where customer input directly influenced a change or improvement at Wilson Audio?
There are innumerable ways. I mean, one of the things that I say, you know, for example, our speakers are sold all over the world, and they're painted with very, very delicate, you know, and high quality painting procedures where any mark will become magnitude, you know, when you unpack it. And we've had a lot of feedback from customers who've given us some good suggestions, which we have learned and absorbed. That's just one small thing. Another thing is that we get feedback about, well, a lot of the things that Daryl, particularly Daryl, is more open to customer feedback than we as a general company were in the past. And so many of the innovations that he has developed on our, for example, even our newest Watt Puppy, which goes back to our beginning, we have these little screws that if you're going to change the resistors in the excess, he's made that process that any customer can do that. And that was suggested by a customer to Daryl, and he didn't ignore it. Can you make that process easier? And by gosh, he did, you know. And it's a good thing, because it's something that we recommend that the resistors be changed out over, depending on how, you know, hard you push the speaker or how often you use it, but maybe as a matter of course once every 3 or 5 years. Well, if you're going to do that and you're going to own these speakers for a long time, why not make that process as simple as it could possibly be? There's so many instances though that it could, but the real thing is that we're not only responding to customers, but we also respond to reviewers, the professionals and the dealers, who give us a strong feedback. And I do believe that that's a critical part of who we are, in that you know, we're not always right, but we're always willing to learn and improve things, and I think we've done a pretty darn good job. We're not a market-driven product, though, in that people are always saying, well, why don't you make this, why don't you make that, or that we don't respond to. We still subscribe to the same maxim that Dave Wilson always had, and that is that When I think of something that I want to have and enjoy for myself, then I'll go about, build it, design it and build it. You know, we don't respond to customers telling us, why don't you make this or that? That's not how we work. We work differently. And we've been very blessed because, as Dave Wilson used to say, I'm fortunate that a lot of people agree with the things that I want. And so as a company, we've been quite successful. And Daryl has continued that tradition. But there is a lot of give and take between what our, you know, we're not marketing driven. We're driven, like I said, by building things that we'd like to have, and can fill a niche for the music lover. Maybe making something like, well, the Watt Puppy that we just brought out, for example, is many $1000s cheaper than the next model up that we make, but gives probably 90% of the performance at a product that allows more people to enjoy something that they might otherwise not be able to afford. Not only that, but it's a celebratory product because we just completed our 50th year. And I think that's pretty darn good. And it's a good way to kind of go back to your beginnings to celebrate where you are half a century later. And that's what the Watt Puppy represents. We've just taken a speaker that was designed many years ago and populated it with all of our current technology and made it sound startlingly good. So that I'm very proud. I'm very proud to have been around long enough to see that happen, you know.
And the success and the feedback from many customers are speaking for Wilson Audio. That's true.
Yep.
Now, tell us which model is here in the background, and maybe you can tell us also the key specifications.
All right. It's a speaker that actually is not terribly new. This is the last product that David Wilson himself designed. This is the Wham. It's not the full Wham system because the room precludes having the full Wham. The full Wham would normally consist of these giant towers, one for left and one for right, and then a fairly substantially large woofer assembly. The woofer is not necessary for this system to play full range music. It's just a way of allowing the system to generate more space in a bigger room. So this is called the Wham. It's going on 5 or 6 years old now. It's not new, but we still offer it. It was built in limited quantities. When Dave developed the speaker, as I said, it was the last thing he did. He specified that it would have a maximum number to be sold. Once we reach that, we stop it. We're not there yet. We're getting fairly close, and once it's done, it's gone. And we have not changed it in any way since Dave designed it originally. That was Daryl's wish, that he did not want to alter the speaker. Frankly, when you hear it, you don't see a need to change it in any way because it's staggeringly beautiful. It's the magnum opus of not only David Wilson, but of the current Wilson Audio Company as well. So it's magnificent. This particular pair, we're just so proud that Mansour Audio Reference made the decision to buy them and keep them on display here in his office. And it's a marvelous tribute to us and to him and his commitment to Wilson Audio. We're thrilled.
Can you try to describe the sound, emotional?
Yeah. The irony of it is that despite its huge sound, it could more accurately replicate the sound of a solo violin than just about any device I've ever heard. And I've recorded a lot of beautiful violinists, you know, both in solo and ensemble. And also, because of its size, it could replicate a full Mahler symphony at full volume as well. So it can scale the full range of any conceivable acoustical music. There are speakers that will play louder than this, but none that will play more beautifully. And this does play very loud, enough to do hearing damage if you chose to do it. So, but For me, I think what this does more than anything else is capture, well, I've never heard my recordings that I make sound more beautiful than they do on the speaker, which I'll play a little bit of that for you later. But the real essence is, well, people, audiophiles use all kinds of terms, like three-dimensionality and spatial representation. And if a recording is well made and the microphones are properly positioned and the balances are good, this speaker will more perfectly render all that hard effort on the part of the engineer than anything I know. And I don't know how to better pay tribute to a loudspeaker, because at the end of the day, the ultimate function of any loudspeaker is to reproduce the recording. And hopefully, if the recording captured emotion and something very, very beautiful, then it comes through unfettered through the loudspeaker. But people talk about emotion in speakers and how they convey it. Well, hopefully all they do is convey what was there in the musical experience in the first place.
Yeah.
And it doesn't filter it out. It doesn't become a technical exercise. It just becomes a musical experience that is being replicated.
I'm really excited to listen to some music with you.
Okay.
To be honest, it's not the first time I'm here. I've listened to these speakers at Audio Reference many times because I live here in Hamburg.
Oh, wonderful. That's great.
And yeah, I had the pleasure to listen to them sometimes. And I really love the sound. I know how it sounds. And just to tell you just one sentence, when I listen music in here, I don't even think about the quality. I forget the word completely. Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean, and that justifies everything we try to do.
Yeah.
That's at the end of the day. That's what we're trying to replicate. It really is something. I have a friend that was a customer, now a friend, but has the full-blown version of these with the subs. And he's a very powerful individual, international businessman, has businesses all over the world and does all kinds of things. And as a consequence, has an incredibly stressful life. And he was telling me, and I was standing in his living room, and he had an Ames chair and one of these in the back. And he was saying to me, Peter, I go through all of these things, and I have these business meetings where all kinds of decisions are being made, and some of them good, some of them bad, and things that I can't control, and so on and so forth. And at some point during those meetings, my mind goes to a vision of that chair, and he points at the chair, that soon I will be in that chair in front of those things behind me. And that's what makes me survive.
Wow, yes.
It's the big challenge right now, though, is that in the world we live in, there's so many distractions. And a lot of them good, but a lot of them are negative things, particularly in these troubled political times. I think that the only way to survive is to maybe find a way to experience something like this and make it part of your life. Doesn't have to be at this scale, obviously. Not everybody can do it, but to whatever scale you can, find a way to make a music reproduction system a component of your life. And it really doesn't matter if you listen to Shostakovich or Led Zeppelin. It basically find a way to incorporate in your home and in your life the means by which you can connect to the vast musical world. And another thing I'd interject is that we are living in a truly, truly golden era of access to music. One of the greatest things that the technology has given us is streaming, and that I can go from African world music to Portuguese fado at the click of a mouse on my computer, and go from that world to that world. we're living in incredible times. It's before that we had our CD collection, we had our LP collection, we had maybe some tapes. I have more recordings that I've made than I have time to listen. But even so, the musical world that we have access to now, through the technology of really beautiful streaming capabilities, and dealers can set this up for you. My gosh, it's incredible. And this is medicine that we need now more than ever.
Yeah. Thank you. Perfect last words. You left me with no questions.
Okay.
That was really good. And
thank you.
Yeah, that's the good point you said. To everybody, find your way, find your setup. It doesn't have to be like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's individual, but find your setup to have the opportunity and take the time to listen and rest at home with good music. Can you give us a music recommendation to listen now together?
Yeah, what I'd love to do is I will play an excerpt from a recording that I was privileged to make, and that is of a young British composer by the name of Benjamin Grosvenor, and this would be the Sarabande from one of the Bach partitas. It's just solo piano, and it may sound simple, but piano, which has been my passion, is remarkably difficult to capture, and this system and this recording, I think, will give you the essence of what people who are privileged to be in that hall experience when they were there.
Cool, I'm excited. Let's listen to it. At this point, somebody else disturbed the magic moment and had to do another interview with Peter, so I didn't get to listen to some music with him. But I will ask him for the song he recommended and will play it in some of my future videos. Do you want to hear it? Comment below and make sure to subscribe to my channel. Thanks for your support.